This is section 3.4, slope and rates of change. The slope of the line is how it's leaning, and it's one of the most important characteristics of a line. And to figure out how it's leaning, what we can do is find any 2 points on the line and figure out how far up do you have to go, up or down, to get from one point to the other. We call that the rise. And how far left or right do you have to go to get from one point to the other? We call that the run. And if you take the rise and you divide it by the run, you get what we call the slope. There's a formula called the slope formula, and here it is right here. And it basically takes in 2 points, so like x1, y1 and x2, y2, and it spits out the slope. So this is the formula you use if you have 2 points and you want to come up with the slope. Here's an example of using that formula. They want us to find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points. We know our formula. The first thing I would do, just to make sure you don't confuse things, is label these points. I'm going to call this x1, y1, and call this x2, y2. Just because there's a lot of pieces in the formula, it's easy to mix up where one goes. So on top, y2 minus y1 will be 3 minus 4. On bottom, x2 minus x1 will be 1 minus negative 2. Be careful about minusing the negative there. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. 1 minus negative 2 is actually 1 plus 2. So we get negative 1 over 3. That is the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points. You should also be able to look at a line and come up with the slope. The way we can do that is, again, identify any 2 points and then count the rise over run, how far up or down, how far left or right, to get from one point to another. So for this first graph over here, let's find 2 clear points. So for example, it looks like it's passing pretty clearly right here, and it looks like it's passing pretty clearly right here. So to go from here to here, how far up and how far over? Looks like we have to go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3. So I would say that has a slope of 1 over 3, because between any 2 points you have to go up 1 and over 3. Notice I'm looking for points that are right on the grid, because like this point here, I don't know exactly where it's at, so it's hard for me to count up and over. If I find something that's exactly on the grid, then I know I can go exactly up 1, over 1, 2, 3, and there I am. For the same idea for the second graph, looks like there's a point here clearly, and there's another point, let's see, here. Okay, so from here to here, we could go down 1, 2, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So down 2 and right 5. When you go down, that's negative in the y direction, so our rise is actually a negative 2. And since we went right 5, right is positive in the x direction, so we'll just do over a positive 5. If I were to count left for my run, then it would be negative. So keep in mind, down is negative, left is negative, up positive, right positive. One little thing to keep in mind is that horizontal lines, like this one right here, have a slope of 0. If you think about the rise over run, the rise between any 2 points is 0. So that means you're going to have a 0 on top of the fraction, which makes the whole thing 0. Vertical lines have undefined slope. Again, this time they'll have a rise, but it won't have a run, because between any 2 points, you don't go left or right. That means there will be a 0 in the denominator, and you'll have an undefined slope. So horizontal lines have 0 slope, vertical lines have undefined slope. You can also graph using a point and a slope, which is probably the best way to graph, and we'll be doing that a lot in the future. Start with your point though. It says we pass through the point 2, 1, so that means you're going to go right 2 and up 1 and plot a point right there. And now it says with slope 2/3. So remember, the slope is telling you between any 2 points how far up and over to get to another point. So we have a point already. I know that if I go up 2 and right 3, rise over run, I'll end up at another point. So from this point I should be able to go up 1, 2 and right 1, 2, 3, and that will be my second point. Right about there. Right, so that's how you basically graph using 2 points, and then I'll just kind of finish it off with the line here. That's going through, sorry, not 2 points, a point and a slope. There's my point at the bottom, and using the slope I found that second point. So here is our line.